Listen, the room is quiet enough to hear dust hang in the light. A radio warms to life on a kitchen table. Somewhere out in the dark of a hard decade, a stranger's voice finds you. Steady as a hand on your shoulder. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. He doesn't thunder, he doesn't beg. Names the monster, shrinks it, and then, without drama, shows you where to put your feet. That voice belongs to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, not a marble statue. A man who could not stand unaided, who learned to move again inch by stubborn inch and then taught a country to do the same. His secret didn't begin in a palace, it began in water. Warm Springs, Georgia. Picture steam rising in blue morning, metal leg braces flashing beneath the surface, a hand gripping a rail. Breathe in, reach forward. Half an inch, hold. Again, he'd lost one kind of motion. He found another. Doctors told him what was gone. The pool told him what remained. Breath, balance, patience, the humility of beginning again. He bought the place, opened it to others, turned pain into service, and in those ripples, he discovered a method. He would once whisper to a nation through cloth and static. Meet reality as it is, refuse to be defined by it, and make hope operational. Cut to March 1933. Washington air like glass. Banks shuttered. Factories asleep on their feet. Farms gone quiet. The country is a house breathing shallow. Roosevelt raises his hand, takes the oath, and speaks like a builder, laying out tools. Discipline, plans, action. Before applause fades, he halts the banking panic, calls Congress back. 4 days later, sits down at a microphone you can almost see glowing in the dark. He doesn't perform invincibility, explains. Here's how a bank works. Here's why yours closed. Here's what happens next. No magic. A map. The morning lines curl around city blocks, not to take money out, but to put it back. Confidence, he proves, is a currency as real as dollars. That's the first turn in our story, and the first lesson worth learning by heart. Fear doesn't vanish because someone commands courage. Fear shrinks when it has a job. Roosevelt's genius was not to shame anxiety, but to shape it. He took the mystery out of money, policy, power. He replaced rumor with comprehension, paralysis with the next small step. Try this in your life. When your team is anxious, don't deliver speeches, deliver maps. What do we know today? What will we measure Friday? What's one action before lunch? Speak warm, speak clear, speak close, then take that step with them. From that map, the New Deal became less a plan on paper than a workshop with the door thrown open. Walk through it and feel the air move. Young men plant trees on a wind-bright ridge. A dam takes shape where a river once only roared. An artist climbs a scaffold and paints the faces of people who've never seen themselves on a wall. A kitchen lamp clicks on in a farmhouse that has only known flame. Relief, recovery, reform, not slogans, verbs. Some experiments soared. Some stumbled. Courts paired, Congress altered, agencies adapted. The point was never to worship novelty. The point was usefulness. Does it lessen the load? Does it move us forward? Will we learn enough to do it better next time? Say it with me, like a refrain worth keeping. Explain, invite, act. Measure, adjust, repeat. This is the second lesson, the courage to iterate in public. Publish the draft, launch the pilot. Build feedback loops with the people you serve. When a plan fails, and if you're doing anything worthy, some will fail informatively. Say what you learned, change what you can, and try again fast. Progress rarely marches, it carpenters. Sawdust on the floor, tools everywhere, hands already dirty. If you build your life like that Tego light, capers heavy, you will move farther than the perfectionist who never leaves the drawing board. But history doesn't pause for anyone's workshop. Clouds gather over seas, the 30s darken, democracies shudder. It would be easy, tempting to teach in the language of enemy and rage. Instead, Roosevelt holds up a compass, the four freedoms: speech, worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. Not a promise of a gentle world, a promise of a moral horizon. He calls America the arsenal of democracy, not to praise steel, but to sanctify purpose. Planes and ships and tanks are not trophies. They are tools to keep an open society alive. And then the day after Pearl Harbor, a sentence as cold and clean as a river stone, a date which will live in infamy. He is resolute, not reckless, deliberate, not distant. And then, because it's always been the method, he keeps teaching. What ration books are for, how production will work, why we carpool and plant and save. If you listen closely, you can hear unity in ordinary sounds. Tire driven longer to save rubber, a shovel in a victory garden, the click of a war bond stamp book to families, sharing a ride to strangers, sharing a burden, is the third lesson. Make purpose shared. Coalitions aren't miracles. They're instruments awkward, human essential. For aiming many strengths in one direction, you can build them too. Begin by naming what you're for before you name what you're against. Invite someone, unlike you, to be a co-author, not a decoration. Keep returning the conversation to the mission when ego wants applause. Purpose spoken plainly is portable. Many hands can carry it. Underneath every policy, speech, and map-line desk, there's the quieter truth learned in water. A person can be limited in one dimension and limitless in another. Roosevelt didn't treat his wheelchair as punctuation. It was a fact he worked around. Public braced, priced and private, wheeled. The weight of metal on his legs tuned his voice to a human frequency. He knew the ache of being told to settle. He knew the bravery of moving anyway. That's why, even now, his words feel like a banister in the dark. You don't grab them because they're dramatic. You grab them because they hold. Near the end, nights at Hyde Park grew long. He worked past the edges of health and still lifted his eyes beyond the war to the scaffolding of a peace not yet built. Institutions that might keep ordinary people from being ground under history's gears. He sat at Warm Springs for a portrait he would not see finished, brush hanging midair. A gaze not on the painter, but on the far room only he could see. The canvas, unfinished, became a symbol of its own, intention and color, a hand suspended, work still to do. He left us a final margin note, a sentence that sounds like a door key. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. If you keep only one picture from this story, keep the radio on the kitchen table, a family leaning in. The room quiet enough to hear courage come back. On the other side of that speaker isn't a magician, it's a builder with a method. And here it is again, one last time, because repetition makes it muscle. Explain, invite, act, measure, adjust, repeat. So start small. Make fear small by making steps specific. Write the memo that restores comprehension where rumor lives. Launch the pilot that turns talk into touch. Open your circle until it's just wide enough to hold the people who will carry the load with you. Fear is real. So is resolve. Pain is real. So is purpose. Crisis is real. So is community. When you doubt him, you will borrow his sentence until your own voice finds footing. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Then take one honest step, then another, then another. That is how a person moves again. That is how a people do. If you ever forget, you know where to listen. A radio in a quiet room, a hand on the rail, warm water, forward, breathe.